Sometimes life corners you. The odds stack up. People tell you it's impossible. The data says it's over. And maybe, just maybe, you've got a 1% chance. But here's the truth. 1% is not zero. And as long as it's not zero, you fight. There's something extraordinary about the human spirit. Something defiant, stubborn, and beautiful. It's the ability to believe even when the odds are stacked high against us. When logic says you shouldn't try and the world says you can't win, belief whispers, maybe, just maybe. And that whisper, that tiny voice inside that refuses to die, can move mountains even when statistics say otherwise. Belief is not about being blind to reality. It's not about ignoring the challenges or pretending they don't exist. It's about looking at the odds dead in the eye, acknowledging the weight of them, and choosing to stand tall anyway. It's not denial, it's defiance. Because when everything says no and you still say yes, that's power, that's belief. That's the beginning of something unstoppable. So often, the people who achieve the impossible aren't the smartest, the richest, or the most skilled. They're the ones who kept going when others stopped. They're the ones who dared to see a light in the dark and walk toward it, even when no one else believed it was there. And what's remarkable is that belief, pure, unshakable belief, doesn't just help you survive difficult situations, it changes how you experience them. It transforms your mindset, your energy, and your ability to act. It fuels resilience. It brings creativity to the surface. It activates parts of you that only awaken under pressure, like a warrior who only draws their sword when the stakes are highest. The world often tries to define what's possible using numbers. People look at percentages, projections, and probabilities, but belief doesn't care about the math. Belief says, I don't need 100 chances, I just need one, and I'm gonna take it. Because belief doesn't measure success by what's likely, it measures it by what's possible. And possible is a doorway, possible is enough to push you forward. Think of how many breakthroughs in history were made by people who were told it can't be done. How many innovations, revolutions, and comeback stories started with the world saying, you're wasting your time. And yet those same people, whether they were inventors, athletes, artists, or ordinary individuals, chose to believe anyway. Not because the evidence was on their side, but because they knew that if they waited for certainty, they'd never move. When you believe in something deeply, whether it's a dream, a goal, a mission, or simply yourself, you develop a kind of tunnel vision. The noise around you starts to fade. The laughter of doubters becomes background static. You stop asking for permission. You stop looking for approval. You just go. You chase it like it's yours already. And in that chase, you change. You evolve. You become stronger, sharper, more committed than ever before. Belief is dangerous in the best way. It threatens mediocrity. It defies cynicism. It makes people uncomfortable because it's hard to argue with someone who simply won't quit. Belief is a kind of rebellion. It's a refusal to accept limits that others have accepted for themselves. And that's what makes it so powerful. It isn't just a mindset, it's a force of movement. And the truth is, you don't need anyone else to believe in your dream for it to be valid. You don't need applause to start. You don't need consensus to take your first step. You just need you, the version of you that trusts, even when it's hard. The version of you that keeps going, even when you're tired. The version of you that understands the most powerful words in any language aren't I hope or I wish, but I believe. There's a quiet truth that defies all calculations, all forecasts, and all predictions. Human will is greater than probability. You can measure numbers, you can estimate chances, you can run simulations and make projections, but you can never fully quantify the power of a determined soul, because will, raw, relentless, deeply personal will, is the X factor that turns underdogs into champions, long shots into legends, and the impossible into the inevitable. Numbers may describe a moment, but will reshapes it. Probability deals in what is likely. Human will deals in what is necessary. When a person decides that something must happen, when they burn their bridges, silence their doubts, and lock in on a goal with unshakable focus, something shifts. The equation changes. Suddenly, it's not about whether something can happen. It becomes about making it happen. And that's when things start to move. When doors open that were never meant to open. When barriers bend under pressure. Because the mind, when fully committed, becomes a force that no statistic can resist. There are countless examples across time where people have succeeded not because the odds were in their favor, but because they refused to let the odds dictate their story. Whether it's someone crawling back from injury to compete again, someone building a dream from nothing, or someone standing up for justice when everyone else stayed silent, what they all have in common isn't luck or perfect timing, it's will. Will to keep going, will to endure pain, will to face fear,
will to be told no and move forward anyway. And what makes will so powerful is that it's rooted deep within. It's not a reaction to external praise or criticism. It's not dependent on conditions being ideal. It rises when there's nothing left but grit, when failure looks certain, when everyone else would understand if you quit. That's where will is born. Not in the easy days, but in the darkest hours. That's where it grows teeth. That's where it refuses to break. Will doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait to be understood. It acts. It decides. It commits. Probability is passive. It waits to be measured. Will is active. It changes the terms. And sometimes when the gap between your dream and your reality seems too wide, it's not more resources you need. It's not better timing. It's more will. More of that internal fire that says, I'll find a way or I'll create one. And no one can give that to you. No one can hand you will. It comes from deciding that your mission is bigger than your fear, that your purpose is louder than the noise, that your identity is not defined by failure, but by the refusal to give in. And the most dangerous thing in the world is a person who has decided they will not stop, because you can't negotiate with someone who has made peace with pain. You can't defeat someone who doesn't fear starting over. And you definitely can't predict the limits of someone who sees their will as their most valuable weapon. So yes, the odds might be against you. The numbers might not be in your favor. The charts and graphs might say it's over. But the one thing they don't measure, the one thing they can never fully grasp, is what happens when a human being digs deep, clenches their fists, grits their teeth, and says, I'm not done. That moment, that decision, that force of will, it has changed more in history than probability ever has. Regret is a quiet weight, one that doesn't scream, doesn't crash down all at once, but instead lingers. It lingers in the pauses of life, in the quiet moments when you reflect on what could have been. What eats people alive isn't the fact that they tried and failed, it's the knowledge that they didn't try at all, that they walked away from something before they gave it a real chance, that they silenced their own voice before the world ever had the chance to. There's a kind of pain that comes with failure, yes, but it's clean. You fall, you bleed, you stand back up, and you move forward with scars that tell a story. You know you gave it what you had. You know you entered the arena, but regret is different. Regret isn't about what happened. It's about what never did. It's a story with no ending, a book that was never written, a fight that was never fought. And that emptiness, that unknown, is far heavier than any failure ever could be. People often don't regret the rejections, the losses, or the setbacks. What haunts them is the time they didn't speak up, the chance they didn't take, the passion they buried because it wasn't practical. They regret the moments when fear disguised itself as logic, when comfort masqueraded as safety. They regret letting their dreams be ruled by doubt, by opinions, by the illusion that there would always be more time. The truth is, trying is what defines the courageous. It's not the outcome, it's the willingness to step into uncertainty, to move when there are no guarantees. Life is not meant to be navigated through perfect choices and flawless execution. It's meant to be lived fully, with mistakes, detours, falls, and all. Because every time you try, you grow. You become something more than you were. And even if you don't win, even if it ends in disappointment, you gain wisdom, you gain experience, and you gain the peace of knowing that you didn't abandon yourself. There are people who live their whole lives in a box built by fear. They call it being realistic. They shrink their goals, shrink their voice, shrink their world until there's nothing left that scares them, and nothing left that excites them either. They avoid failure so carefully that they also avoid growth. They play not to lose, and in doing so they lose the game without ever realizing it. The days pass, the opportunities fade, and suddenly, what once felt like caution begins to taste like regret. Because when the years pass, and you look back, it won't be the no's or the flops that sting. It'll be the silence, the absence of effort, the dream you let rust, the message you never sent, the idea you buried because someone else told you it wouldn't work. You'll think back to a version of yourself that was ready to leap, and you'll wonder what could have happened if you had just let them fly. Trying doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. It builds resilience, character, and self-respect. Every time you choose to try, you are choosing to live fully, not perfectly, but boldly. And that is always worth it, because the pain of failure passes. But the pain of never knowing, that lingers, that echoes, and it becomes a question that may never be answered. You owe it to yourself to try, not just for the outcome, but for the person you become in the process. The only way to truly lose is to never begin. And in the end, the deepest regret will never be that you failed, but that you never found out what you were truly capable of. Every big win you've ever heard of, every world-changing idea, every legendary comeback, every name etched into history, began with a small chance, a sliver, a moment that could have been overlooked. At the beginning, it never looks like much. It never feels guaranteed. In fact, most of the time, the odds are laughably small. But that's exactly what makes the victory powerful. Because what starts small, when fueled by belief, effort, and persistence, becomes something unstoppable. People often look at the end result, the trophy, the fame, the success, and forget what came before it. They forget the empty rooms, the unanswered calls, the long nights filled with doubt. They forget the 100 doors that were slammed shut before one creaked open. But every winner, every achiever, every creator who built something from nothing, they remember, because they lived through the part no one claps for. The part where the chance of making it was so small, it barely seemed worth mentioning. And that's the trap most people fall into. They wait for a sure thing. They want signs. They want security. They want to know it will work before they begin. But it doesn't work that way. Big wins don't come with guarantees. They come with gut feelings, with blurry visions, with that quiet voice saying, this might not work, but it also might. That's where every dream begins, in uncertainty. And yet those small chances carry massive potential. Because even the smallest spark can set off a wildfire if it lands in the right place. Even the tiniest shift in mindset can start a revolution in someone's life. Small chances are how everything starts, and what separates those who win from those who watch is what they do when they see one. Do they wait, or do they move? The truth is most people never act, because they think the chance isn't big enough. They think starting a business without funding, or changing careers without certainty, or chasing a dream without a plan is foolish. But it's not foolish, it's bold, it's brave, because the real question isn't whether the chance is big. The real question is whether you're willing to make it bigger. And that's the key. Chances grow when you do. They expand with every step you take. They evolve with your resilience, your work ethic, your ability to adapt. A 1% chance becomes 10%, then 50%, then inevitable, but only if you step into it. No win ever arrives fully formed. It is built, piece by piece, from the courage to take the first step, to push through the middle, and to fight for the finish. Look at any athlete who made the impossible comeback. Look at any founder who started in a garage, or any artist who was rejected a dozen times. They weren't handed a golden ticket. They found a crack in the wall, and they kept pushing until it broke. That's what separates success from potential. Action, grit, willingness to take the shot when the crowd is silent, and the scoreboard says you're losing. When you accept that small chances are the starting point for everything great, you stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop needing validation. You realize that the tiniest opportunity is all you need, if you're willing to throw your full weight behind it. Because big wins don't require permission, they require pursuit. Everything you admire today started with someone who didn't wait for certainty. They just saw the flicker of possibility, and they ran toward it. And somewhere inside you there's a small chance burning too, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be acted on. The question is never whether the chance is big enough. The question is whether you're ready to give it everything you've got. It doesn't take much to start something powerful. A spark, that's all. One flash of light, one surge of energy, one moment of clarity. That's all it takes to ignite something that can burn through doubt, fear, and limitation. People think you need the whole plan figured out before you begin, that you need a perfect setup, a big push, or overwhelming support. But the truth is you don't need everything. You just need something, a reason. That spark might be a dream you can't stop thinking about. It might be a sentence someone says that hits you like lightning. It might be a breakdown so deep that you realize you can't keep living the same way anymore. Sparks come in different forms: pain, inspiration, love, loss, truth. But what matters isn't how the spark arrives. What matters is what you do with it. You see, fire doesn't ask for permission. It spreads, it consumes, it transforms. But it always starts small, always. A single match can turn into a roaring blaze if you give it fuel. The same goes for your potential. The same goes for your goals. The same goes for your voice. That spark inside of you might not look like much at first. You might doubt it. You might wonder if it's real. But if you feed it with action, if you protect it from the winds of fear and distraction, if you nurture it instead of ignoring it, it will grow. It will burn. It will light a path you didn't know existed. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they never honor the spark. They wait until the fire is already burning before they believe in it. But fires don't start that way. They begin with something fragile. And the mistake is thinking that something small can't become something great. That's how we kill momentum before it ever begins. That's how we talk ourselves out of doing the very thing that could change everything. Every big movement, every revolution, every story worth telling began with a spark. One person deciding to act, one choice to step forward, one moment of refusing to stay silent, to stay still, to stay the same. Sparks don't come with guarantees. They don't promise smooth roads or easy victories, but they are the beginning of everything. They are proof that something is waking up inside of you, something that refuses to be buried. When you feel that spark, that pull towards something greater, it's your job to listen, not to question it to death, not to wait until everything is lined up, but to move, to strike while it's alive, because sparks don't last forever. If you ignore them too long, they fade. Not because they weren't real, but because you let them die in the name of comfort or fear. You only need a spark. You don't need to know how the fire will burn or where it will go. You don't need to see the finish line. You just need to trust that if something is burning inside you, it's there for a reason. And if you act on it, even just a little, you'll be amazed at how fast things can start to shift. The world is full of people waiting for a miracle, but the ones who move mountains are the ones who act on their spark before it looks like a miracle. The ones who light their own fire, not because they know it will succeed, but because they know they can't afford not to try. So if you've got something small, something barely lit, hold on to it, feed it, protect it. Because even the fiercest wildfire started with nothing but a spark, and that's all you need to begin.